Well, here we are again down the path of second and third gen Smith and Wessons, which is really a passion. These are my favorite shooting guns. You know, there are guns that are more, I don't know, modern, standards, tactical. There are guns that are lighter, guns that are simpler. At the end of the day, though, the second and third gens, no matter the size, material used, nothing handles at the range. And let's be honest, that's what you're going to be using it for, at the range. Now, of course, for carry, which these ones are much more preferred, from my opinion, in this South Florida, very, very hot. And so these compacts, which, in reality, I mean, they're around Glock 19 size, in some ways smaller in the slide dimension, and definitely on the single stack on the right there, the 908 as not to be confused with the regular 908, which is the carbon steel blue model. Now, basically, these two guns are identical in what they do, with the main differences being on the left, the 6906 is double stack, and on the right is single stack. So in reality, you're talking about from 12 rounds plus one versus 8 rounds plus one. Now, the one on the left could take the 5906 mags and they hang out. The one on the right could take the 39 full-size mags and stick out and hold 9 instead of 8. So if it's just about capacity and being in mid-size, I mean, the 6906 is the winner. So why the hell would you want the one on the right? Well, besides collecting, the thinness of that grip makes it even easier to conceal carry, especially with warmer weather climates, or maybe you just like the dimensions fit in a jacket pocket or in your front pants pocket if you like that. That's not really my style. I got big balls, and so it's just there's no room down there. But my point is this: so I was able to trade a Glock with a bunch of mags and a light, and get this, and you can always get another Glock. I mean, they're easy to get used at stores. But these things are not made no more, and both these guns were owned by the same old man. He brought his collection to a store, and this one was still there, and so I brought something today, and was able to get this, and in a good trade. I think a lot of people might not see the value in these, but the people that know, that shoot second and third gen, and there's more people that shoot third gens because they were a lot more made, and the third gens, they were extremely popular. There's so much value to these guns, what they do. The triggers are amazing. They're pinpoint, point and shoot. I enjoy the double action. I enjoy the hammer down carrying with the safety off. To me, it's a preferred. No way to have an accidental discharge on these. But, I mean, anything, obviously your fingers are safety, but at the end of the day, when you're holstering or carrying these things, double action with the hammer down, if you have an accidental discharge with this, there wasn't an accident. There's no way. You're not talking about a SIG, 320. You can't blame it on that. So that long, that's not so long, but that long, smooth double action first shot, which is the most important, because if you don't want things to go off, you don't want them to go off, is really your insurance policy on this. I really enjoy their mode of operation. Also, the way they look and the way they shoot is superior, to my opinion, when anything's being made by mass production now, and they are a piece of history. This is a third gen, and it's obviously their premium line. These are the 6906 double stack. Not a value line at all. However, though, this one being made in 1995, they started adding the MIM parts here. Now, this third gen started towards the end of the decade of the 80s, 87, 88, started having third gen. Definitely by 88. Somewhere along the lines, could you have something that a frame was made in the last month of 87 and left the factory afterwards? It's possible, maybe. But the value line started in Smith definitely by the later 90s. And um, what does the value line mean? Well, from when I looked, this was still around $600 and change in the late 90s. The stainless steel model started in 2003, though. 2007 is what I've seen. So it was only available for a few years. So it's not going to be that many of these out there. This one was in new, never fired condition. This thing has not a scratch on it. That was the other thing. So I had a choice between this being cheaper and more mags versus a 3913 today, and I had to make that decision. Did I want a pristine value model for less with more mags, or a 3913, which would be exactly this with single stack like this, non-value, meaning, you know, the best model, all intents and purposes. And that one did have all stainless steel parts. It was an early one, 3913, even earlier than this, because it had stainless steel hammer and trigger, but it had a lot more carry wear. And not that that bothers me at all, but when I did the math, I wanted to have a single stack added to this, my Smiths, and I think I'd rather have the pristine, you know, never fired piece of history. The value thing doesn't really bother me because this is the one I normally carry, but this one is a nice option to have, you know, just wearing a t-shirt. We're going to go into where the value started. Right off the bat, you can see engraved laser, a lot cheaper. It's just etched, even the symbol, everything, the numbers. This is very smooth. This is deeper into it though, so this could wear off. Whereas even if this etching wore off, obviously you need to have the numbers embedded into the frame. The decocker is the same. The sights is where you're gonna get, the sights actually just as good, if not nicer in some ways. We'll show the rear as far as how bright they are, but not that they're illuminated, but the white dots, these are polymer front and back. So does that save a little weight? Maybe, but it doesn't matter, because we'll get to how the slide on this is definitely gonna be heavier, because, and essentially this has the same slide, they both, but the traditional 39, 59, 69, whatever it is, the premium ones, these slides are more worked and they have that look. This, just like Glock is square, this is a lot more square. You're only going to see this later on in the end, like in a 457, which is a single stack 45, holding only 6 rounds. So you can get an 8+1 or 9+1 on this. So you're going to get that. The slide stop, the same. And you can swap these out. We'll get to the guide rod later. That's polymer. But does that really bother me? No, you can swap it out. But I kind of like it that was on this. It's what it was. The hammer and the trigger is going to be MIM. But just like that one, though, because this is a quasi, where the value started getting into it in 1995, to cut some production costs. And then you could swap out the stainless steel parts here or upgrade this one, but I don't see a reason why. The biggest thing I would say that might bother me per se is that the magazine catch is polymer. Is that a deal breaker? Well, Glock uses a polymer magazine disconnect. So unless you upgrade that, and I've never seen people have them, oh my, can't get my Glock mag out, or, I mean, come on, I mean the handle's made of a polymer, it's very tough. But from there, we see the sights went to polymer to save cost. The slide was not as cut down, laser etching instead of engraving, time, money saved, and then the magazine disconnect. We'll get to the other side in a second where you see other value features. Let's get to it. Here on the right side, both barrels are made of solid stainless steel, so I mean, barrel's just as strong. No issues with that on the value side, which is really important. This actually I don't mind at all for carry. This has only a single side for right-handed shooter, safety to cocker. It has a more cleaner look, and it lets you use the serrations. You almost don't need the serrations on the ambidextrous slide stop to cocker, because those levers are much more pertinent than serrations. and you could use that to rip the slide all day. The grips are going to be pretty much the same, except these are thinner, being single stack, and this one obviously is in pristine condition. So that right there, I mean, so you get to see the coloring of these guns without any kind of wear. Well, this has some carry wear on this. No Smith & Wesson engraving on this side though, so they saved money there too, I guess. Every feature is a step. The pins here look the same there, holding the trigger assembly line. You see how it's more raised here though. It's a little bigger, which will add probably a little to the weight. So there is a chance that this might have a little less recoil, but we have less aluminum in the lower though, because it is a thinner frame. But you might like that better, more to hold on to per se, I don't know. But this has a little more of a brighter, almost a whiter aluminum silver look versus the older one from 95. This one has to be from 2003 to 2007. Also in the spacing, you can see a little bit straight through versus that, and I haven't figured out the reasons for that main difference. We'll get to that. Internally, there are some more differences, and we'll show that when we take these apart. But yeah, it still has the same steel roll pin, very strong. Popping these out, you're not going to break the pin. If somehow you crack this piece, you can get these for 20 bucks. And but the hammer spring's going to be in here, which obviously connected with the trigger and the to the back with the hammer. So it's got that going for. Obviously the other side here, this is polymer for the other part of the mag disconnect, but this is made of stainless steel. So we'll see how that holds up. But I mean, for what I've read, you can, I could be wrong. I don't know if the mag catch, if I could replace this part with stainless steel. I might want to, or I might just want to keep it as is. I don't see, I really don't see, I'm not going to go through, 10,000 rounds on this. Most importantly, the extractor is the stainless steel. It's very important. The system on the second, third gens, of course we include the first, but the second gen was a major overhaul and increased in reliability and durability. The third gen, I think, smoothed it out, and in some ways made it more reliable, even more durable in some ways, but in other ways it just became more streamlined. I think the third gen was more smoother on the exterior notes, less snagging. There's no real sharp edges on the third gen, any of them, compared to the second. The second gen is much grippier and I think fancier looking, definitely. But the third gen came smoother, and this is even smoother in more ways. And even there too, we go with this raising right here, which in here encases the trigger assembly. Here it's completely smooth. So is that a good or a bad thing? Makes a different dimension. Obviously, it costs more money to make cuts like that. It adds to the look. I almost didn't even realize that. So that has that going for it. So maybe you like the streamlined look. So all in all, as far as performance, I've had a Chief Special, which is like a shorter, even I think it's a smaller. I don't know. I don't know how I think it's smaller. I had a Chief Special 9mm version, and I regretted trading that. That one I think had polymer sights, and I think it even had a shorter barrel. I'll have to Google that. But I never had a 908S, and I couldn't resist it for even trade. Now let's take this apart and look at the differences. But there's really no videos on the 908S, so I'm happy to make this for YouTube. Let's take the pen out. Look at the slide. Definitely different geometry. Safety upright's the same, but has that squared look. Definitely more of a blocky look, but that doesn't bother me. It's gonna have the same ejection port as the third gen there, which is the second version of the third gen, because the original third gen had the same ejection port of the second gen. So that's an upgrade, obviously, for more reliability. Have a wider ejection port, but a very clean look there. Very clean look, very thin. It's a very thin feeling pistol. Now let's get these things taken apart. Okay, so here we are, disassembled. Obviously things that are similar. Slide stops, the slide stop. That's the same. Solid piece of stainless steel. That's a good thing. The springs are the same length, and they should be totally interchangeable, which is a good thing. Well, you're going to see a difference. Cost cutting is this polymer guide rod, which I don't have a problem with it. Beretta's even use them on the 92. We can go down the line of companies that have done this. It doesn't feel like a piece of shit. This is a real solid as it gets for polymer. It's not rinky-dink. And these grooves in here will make it very reliable with dirt or grit getting in there. So that's quite nice. This is the only part here that I might have a problem with that. But I don't see that really being a major issue. I'm sure we can swap this out. Let's look at the dimensions. They're the same. So it is what it is. Now the barrels, same construction as far as material, and it has that same lockup with the bushing and the slide. See the bell end. It's a simplify like a 1911, but instead of having a bushing, you have to remove it, added parts, and something that could break. The bushing and these was built into it, which is very smart. So you get that accuracy of the barrel locking up in the same place every shot. Same markings, 9mm parabellum, but you can clearly see there's no lug here though, like that. All of these second and third gens up to date have lugs. The value line on this 908 or the S, this is stainless. Very clean barrel. Still has that, it looks like chrome plating on the feed ramp and everything else here. This is not a value barrel. This is a very solid barrel. So I don't see any issues with that or coming up with that or accuracy. However, you would not be able to swap the barrels out with the slide. However, though, we'll see if we could swap slides onto the frames, and I'm not sure, and I'll get to reasons why. Obviously, this is much thinner. If you are a Smith & Wesson fan like I am, you would know that the second, third gens and the first gens have grooves in the front of the slide that ride on the inside of the frame here. There's none. There's none. It's almost like a white silver. You see that there's not very clean, but look, there's no, it's smooth in here. Whereas on the true to the third gen, you got these rails, and that might be an issue. It might be an issue. It might be an issue. I don't think it'd be an issue putting this third gen, that one there, on this single stack, because it has the rails, but that means that there's less material to go into the rails. So, but to put this one on that, might not be able to because it doesn't have the grooves. It might not fit in there. I don't know. Ooh, that's exciting. Let's look at the undercarriage of these. This is definitely heavier. That's a heavier slide. It's a beefier slide. And I'll show you where the groove is. You see with the lug right there, this has grooves to ride those lines. So I don't think so. I don't think so, Charlie. I don't think it's gonna happen. See the lug? The barrel's gonna lock up. Let's try. Let's try putting the wrong barrel. I think this would work because this has less material here for the lug to fit in. So if anything, there's more room. No. here. Look at that, it fits. It fits. Okay, so my guess was right. The one with no lug could fit in the gun with the lug because there's more room. However, though, this has no cutout for the lug. Look how clean that is. Pristine. Oh, did they change that? Look at that. The firing pin safety, no, that's the firing pin safety. The magazine disconnect here is different than that one. Okay, that's strange. Let's see if we can put the wrong barrel in. It fits, but does it? Okay, maybe it's because there's so much more room in here. But look, it fits. Totally locks up. I don't know how I feel about that. Is the lug just a scam? No. I think the lug is just an added feature to lock up the front of the barrel, obviously with the bushing and the lug in here. I mean, that's oof, oof. This is a sin. Let's get the. It's hard. Here's the major difference. So you can see on the right, on the standard third gen 6906, just like all the other third gens, it's got the front rails. We already saw that, but it is deeper here. It's a wider. It's wider there, but also, I guess to compensate for having no rails in the front of the value line, they had more rails in the middle. Look at that. Now, is that a good or a bad thing? The one on the left, the value line, is more like SIG, which has full rails from the rear to about, past the midway point, almost 3/4. So here has no rails in the middle over the magwell, but it has added rails in the front. So overall, though, really it has about the same amount of rail distance because the distance here in the front is compensated for rail in the middle. Is that a good or bad thing? I don't know. But obviously, less machining they had to do to cut those rails out. Now, why you'd want that rails off? Maybe it's for heat dissipation. Maybe. So who knows? Maybe this one on the left, the value one, might shoot the same or better. I don't know. But that is a difference. That is a difference. In the left, the back, you see both hammers here have the mid parts, but you see here it's hollowed out. And this, you're talking about a difference of maybe 10 years. So this is from the mid 2000s to 2007. You see that mid part there has almost hollowed out. Why they changed that, I don't know, but it is beefier. The hammer actually in the left on the value has a beefier hammer, but they made it more hollow in the center, so it's wider front to back. In every aspect, it's a bigger hammer. Slight changes, but ooh, yeah, even that part there in the center there, I don't know. So now let's take a look at slides. And this definitely feels like a taller slide. Now it appears to be wider, but that's because, see here, the angle of the slides on the non-value line, the traditional third gen, the second version in a sense. And you can see the sights difference. This is steel, this is polymer, which is more drastic design there. And you can see the sights there. Now these sights here, the white dots, is almost like painted on that, so could that wear off faster than that? Perhaps, I don't know. Injection ports, actually, wow, I take that back. This is wider than the second gen or the beginning of third gen, but they made this even wider. They took off more material here. This injection port's much bigger than that. Wowza. Wowza. So another variation. Second gen and early third gen has a much smaller ejection port. The second variation, the third gen, has this wider ejection port. And at the end of third gen, they started getting value and getting cheaper on parts, and I guess you could upgrade yourself. But look at that. Look at that material taken out. That's much wider. That's kind of nice, actually, for case to get cases out if the gun was dirty, or if you have an underpowered cartridge, a lot easier not to get stuck in this. As far as the barrels, both top notch, same length, chrome plating there on the rears. So I mean, really, they saved money where they could on these. But I don't see a major detriment. It's not like it's using a shittier barrel or a shittier quality slide. I mean, this is stainless steel slides. They save money on the decocker. I actually don't mind that. The sights, if you wanted to, I'm sure you could swap out if you wanted to. It doesn't bother me. The rail's longer on the value line, except there's no rails in the front. And here you have rails internally on the front. These are the same, the slide stops. The guide rods, you could take it or leave it. I'm sure you could swap those out. But there's no, here you have nice lines here for grip, and there as well. Here on the 908, completely smooth, as smooth as it gets. So I'm not mad at all, especially for what I didn't pay for this. It was a nice trade. Just for something I wanted, and that was a good day. Hey, you take this with a bunch of mags and a light, and get this piece of history, and knock down the price, and I'm very happy. This, you can see almost the difference in the height. See how much more recess that is. There's more material on the top of this. Let's look at the front of the slides. There's the insert there. Now let's look at the front of this slide. This obviously has more carry wear. This is running around about a decade more, give or take. So, got the grooves in there. It's got no grooves. I'm gonna get these reassembled. I'm gonna try to see if the slides are swappable. Probably shouldn't, but I will. As they say in football, upon further review, I was wrong. This is the slide stop to the value line, non-value line. What do you see? Well, this part here is shorter. Not only that, this part here is longer here. And that makes sense because the frame on the non-value line is raised here. Here it's not. It needs more length. So you could use the longer one on the value line. It's just going to stick out of the hole more. But this one here will be too short on this one. So I'm glad we did that. And also my hypothesis was right. This is the right slide of the third gen, 6906. I could not put the value line slide on here. The internal rails here on the slide has room on this, but in the frame, the rails come out to fit into that. And this doesn't have the rails. So what I did was I put this in, tried going this way without the slide on, and it would not fit. I'm glad I didn't try to put it on the slide and perhaps getting it maybe stuck. However, though, the non-value slide, the the 6906 with the groove here fits on here because the wider space. But I'm just gonna leave it. So things to know that the 6906 slide can go on the 908 values, but not the other way around. And I'm just gonna leave them stock because you start fucking around and you might find out. And I didn't want either of these guns on getting stuck onto things I didn't want. So that being said, if you have these both, maybe don't swap the slides out because the value line doesn't have the groove, and then the slide stops are different lengths, which makes them different pieces. You could use this on this. It's just gonna stick out, and I guess you could grind that down, but then you're stuck with it. There's also more meat on this. This is just this is a stronger, better built piece. However, this is still very well made, but you see how much meat there is when it catches versus that. That part is going to catch into the slide into here, whereas on this, that is the same size. So it's just overbuilt, or built right per se, and built just enough. You see they took meat off here. So it is what it is. Let me get these back up and close these. One last thing. The premium line, the painted red dot, you know it's in fire mode. But you know it's in fire mode because the safety's off. But on here, you know the safety's off, and it's got the dot. But they saved money on fucking paint. And this has the red dot on the other side too, I believe, right? Yes. 2 red dots. They saved 2 drops of paint. No paint, not even a dot. So they saved another step. You don't gotta put a dent in the aluminum. So point is this: in reality, same exact guns, minus the capacity, single stack versus double stack. And if you want me to show you those side by side, let's take a look without scratching the guns. There is a difference. And if you're carrying, just a t-shirt or something like that, that makes a big enough difference that this is a lot. This just, you can't even tell you're carrying it just wearing a cheap Walmart t-shirt. So that's with that. Both fantastic guns from the past. This from much further past. This from modern past. And as guns like Glock came out, they had to start cutting costs wherever they could, and then, unless machining and everything else, all these things, this cutting down that slide, the grooves, the stippling in the aluminum on the front here, this is really stiff. Nothing here, parts here, cheaper part here, one piece here, 2 drops of paint. The hammer doesn't bother me, or the trigger, and then the plastic sides, no lug, 1 solid length versus 2 pieces of length rails here, and then rails on the internal, versus just 1 piece of rails. Laser edging versus that. Nobody has a video about all these details, and to me that's what's important. And I will pull out, not my dick, let me pull out. I do have a 3rd gen here, hold on, 5906, so you can see what I'm talking about. See, this is the first run of 5906. See how it actually has the 2nd gen ejection port. It is much smaller, sharper looking, but compared even to the beginning of that, this is much wider than this. This is the original design, just like the 59 and the 659, and this is the 5906. Look at that, man, back then in the 80s, all stainless steel. Yeah, plastic sights, don't think so. Red dots up your ass. Steel covering the sides. Stainless steel hammer, stainless steel trigger, everything stainless steel. No playing around. Stainless steel up into the steel sight, bushing, etc. So yeah, so the ejection port, you can see here, they changed that. It got wider here. These are both third gens. Forget about the frame and the size, but the ejection port got bigger as the third gen progressed, and as the third gen ended, it got the biggest, which I don't mind that getting bigger. So anyways, here we're done here, and you see the beginning of third gen square trigger guard. The stippling on this thing is crazy. Like, you could mash potatoes with that. And I guess that was back then when cops could, beat you with their gun, because that thing is, I mean, it's an anvil. Oof. So this was as good as third gen got ever. As far as premium, all stainless steel, I would never sell this gun. You're never gonna find a 5906 first 2-year run with the original design of the 5906. I carried over from the second gen with the square trigger guard, no min parts, nope. The hammer, stainless, everything. This is from 1987. Then maybe 88, but pretty sure 87. And then they started saving money a little bit here, and then they really saved a lot of money. Oh, and the frame, smooth frame. So I mean, the evolution or the de-evolution, and they all, I haven't shot this one yet, but I know it's going to shoot great, but it's going to be probably as reliable with the extractor and that barrel and everything. It's going to work fine, but you can see people, as time went on and basic striker fire, no frill guns coming out, people just wanted their guns cheaper, but this was a different era in the 80s, and these things came from obviously the 70s with the 59, starting in the 70s as far as double stack, and then with the 659, etc. And then when we can pull out, if you want, the grandfather of all these. This is the second gen, but this is this gun and this gun were made around the same exact time. This is the second gen in that condition. Look at that. Now you can see how the second gen, these slides are the same, but this is polished extractor. See, they took the polished extractor away on here and here, so that was another added feature. But this is the compact, but still, you see how back then there was a screw on the gun because technology. But you can see how back then, 3-piece grips. Now, I have seen this model. This is the end of the 669, but I have seen other early 669s and 469s, which is the same gun but in blued, with it's obviously the same 3-piece grips, but they're smooth and they look really shitty. So this is the first time actually in my life when I got this that the 3-piece grips actually have this much stippling. So this must have been, because this is made in 87, which is the last year they made this. So this must have been top of the hill here. So in a way, everything went downhill after 1987. Even though this was as good as, third gen was as good as it gets here as far as the upgrades. Still, these look nicer, but this is, you could pop this out and put a new one in. 1-piece, baby. 3-piece, baby. You break this, you gotta get those 3 pieces. And it is what it is, but that's classier. But you can see how the ejection port was covered over from the second gen to third gen in the beginning. Then the ejection port and the whole slide dimension became different. You see how it's wider versus here it's skinnier like that. And in the end, they all went wider and smoother, cheaper, plastic, eventually becoming square like Glock. Glock is a disease. it is what it is. I can't stress that enough. Oh, but the trigger on the second gens are wider, and they're like a polished. Everything was better in the '80s. Damn it! I don't know what happened. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I, I don't know. I don't have an answer. But we're done here. I could get new grips for this, but I kind of like the history behind this. Clearly, the guy that owned this carried it. Didn't shoot it a lot, but carried it a lot. Could have been a detective's gun, because that's definitely someone carrying a lot, and maybe they put on their seatbelt a lot and getting scuffed up here. But anyways, we're done here. I hope you enjoyed the evolution and de-evolution of the Smith & Wesson series from second gen to third gen. This was the first compact Smith & Wesson ever made. Obviously a 9mm, but there's only one caliber, 9mm, the 669, and then going to the 6906, same gun but two different generations in a sense, and then ending same gun in a sense but single stack, but the value line. So same concept but cheaper. But it is what it is. Can't stress it enough. I think we're done here. I really thank you guys for hanging out. Hope you learned something. And what I learned is I wish we can go back to like the late 80s or early 90s where like these things were peak, you know, like, you know, it is what it is. So while you're carrying your Micro 9 and like your SIG 365, I laugh at you. What a piece of shit. Really, I don't care. Piece of shit. I would take a 6906 all day over your 365. It's garbage. I don't care. It's garbage. I would carry a Glock 26 over a 365. And I'm a SIG fan. I like SIG 220, one of my favorite handguns. Give me a West German SIG 220 all day. But anyways, you got the thinking. You got to see. The good thing is all these can take the same mags. Obviously, the long one could fit in both of these. Not the short one, but still, it's you know. But yeah, we're done. Have a good night. Oof. I wish they still made these guns. I've owned pretty much every type of modern gun except custom shit because I'm not rich, and I had to trade a lot because I'm not rich, so if I want something, trade something. But the point is, the Smith & Wesson semi-autos from the second, third gen are the best shooting guns. And I'm the biggest Beretta fan you ever met in Beretta 92 series, especially with Die Hard and Lethal Weapon. But this 5906 shoots better than any Beretta 92, period. Better trigger, the reset, and the follow-up shots. There's no comparison from a stock Beretta 92. Now, if you send it to LTT and they upgrade it, might start getting close to that. I mean, these things stock, and they had their gunsmiths work on all these guns from the factory. Back then, shit meant something. Smith & Wesson used to mean something. Things were custom from the standard fucking performance center. Things were performance center out of the box back then. Imagine them making this now. What would this cost? Easy, $1,200. Like, it wouldn't be cheap. And think of that when you buy your G2C Taurus. And trust me, these things now, you shop around, you find them at a place. Some old man turned his collection, or he died, and his wife brought him in. And she had no idea what they're worth. You could get these for under $400, like $350 even sometimes with mags. I can't stress that enough. Like people, like this gun right here, that's stainless steel, top and bottom, all. I paid $500 for this in that condition. That was from a estate sale. An old man died in Colorado, and just came in to Cabela's, and they bought his whole estate, you know, his firearms. And that was the first day it came out. I paid $5 for that a few years ago. I would never sell that. Because to get this now, go try to find a stainless steel, I don't know, SIG. Even in a 220 or 226, I'm sorry, it's aluminum frame, so I don't even know if they make a stainless steel lower for a 226. But anyways, yeah, that's better than a SIG Legion 226. I can't stress it enough. Nothing on these things break. This one I've shot a lot. Yeah, America was the best back then. Really was. It meant something. I can't stress that enough. Oof. Plastic.